Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we are reading a story called Can You Sew a Flag? Betsy Ross by Cindy Patty. What we're going to be looking at today is a genre called historical fiction. There are some things that you're going to see within inside a historical fiction genre. The setting is going to be authentic. It's going to be real, more like a period in time. It's going to be a real historical place. Whatever event is happening is going to be a historical event, okay? The conflicts that you may see within the story may be the character having some internal conflicts, having some external conflicts. The character within the story, some are real, some are fictional. They act, speak, remember we call speaking in text dialogue, and live as if they were in that time in history. The plot is based on real events and mixed with some fictional events. The story has a problem and a resolution most of the time. And the author's purpose is usually to entertain the reader. They also share some information about a time period that is really interesting to them. And these are some pictures of examples of historical fiction that even I will read to you within this class, okay? Today we are going to be practicing looking at main story elements within the story of Can You Sew a Flag, Betsy Ross. To help us describe the main story elements such as the setting, the plot, and characters, we'll be looking at the illustrations. Using both words and illustrations can help us get a deeper understanding of what the story is about. Can You Sew a Flag, Betsy Ross by Cindy Patty. Something wild happened in the shop today. Miss Betsy Ross took a break from sewing to have tea and biscuits. I sat on the floor nearby hoping for a crumb. Then the door flew open. In walked General George Washington. "What can I do for you, sir?" said Betsy Ross. So as you can see in the very first paragraph, they have already introduced us to our characters. Who can tell me who our characters are in the story so far? Yes.
The mouse, Betsy Ross, and General George Washington.
Very good. As you can see in the illustration, this mouse right here, Betsy Ross, and in walked General Washington. Okay? What point of view is the story being told in so far? Yes.
First person.
First person. And how do we know this? Yes.
Because it says I.
Because it says, I sat on the floor nearby hoping for a crumb. So then we know the person, the character who is speaking within the story, most likely is the little mouse because he says, I'm over here looking for a crumb. All right? So the person who is speaking or telling the story right now is this little mouse right here. I'm going to show you how the illustrations can help us further our understanding. In the first sentence, I read the characters are in a shop. Looking at the illustrations, I can see threads, needles, and piles of fabric. When I connect these details, I know that the story is set in a sewing shop. So I can see the sewing shop here. I can see the threads and the fabric that she uses to make her material. Next, I look back at the illustrations to find the characters I read about in the first paragraph. I read the name Betsy Ross and General George Washington. When I look at the illustrations, I see a man who must be George Washington standing in a doorway, and a woman who must be Betsy Ross sitting at a table with a pot of tea. I also notice characters are wearing old-fashioned clothing. Old-fashioned clothing she has on, and him as well. This tells me the setting of the story occurs in the past. Our new country needs a flag, General Washington said. The citizens should have a symbol of our freedom. Can you sew a flag? General Washington held out a sketch of the flag he wanted. I see that your stars have 6 points, Miss Ross said. I think 5-pointed star would be better. So again, that goes back to your perspective. His perspective, how he thinks and feels, is he wanted to create a flag for the citizens of America that had 6 points on it. And then after she used her expertise and she's looked at it, she's saying, you know what? I think it might be better that it has 5 points instead, okay? Using text evidence within the story, who can tell me the reason that General George Washington wanted to create this flag? Yes.
The citizens should have a symbol of our freedom.
Very good. He wanted this flag to represent freedom for America. The illustration on page 7, what do you notice about what the characters are doing? Yes. Very good. They're looking at the plans or the sketch that General Washington came up with, because there's one thing to describe how you want something, but it's another thing to actually come with the details. It helps a person really create exactly what you're looking for, okay? And if you notice their facial expressions, you can tell it's kind of serious, because this is a matter that's very important to the general, all right? Miss Ross folded a piece of fabric, picked up her scissors, and cut a 5-pointed star with just one snip. General Washington was amazed. So was I. For days, Miss Ross cut and stitched. 13 5-pointed stars and 13 stripes represented the 13 colonies. When General Washington returned, Miss Ross proudly displayed the flag for him. A new flag for a new country, the United States of America, he proclaimed happily. So what is the illustration at the bottom showing me?
The United States displayed the flag for him.
Very good. Betsy Ross displayed the flag for General Washington. This is the flag that we have today. Our flag has 13 stripes that represents the 13 colonies. So the story itself may have been fictional, the way that they were able to create the flag, but the history behind it is real. Betsy Ross is the person that created the first United States flag. So that is our history within that. So once again, we were looking at the genre of historical fiction. This story did not have any conflicts, but most likely the characters were trying to get to one common goal. And their common goal was to be able to make an American flag for the people that represented a symbol for America. So this is Washington right here. He was a general and he was going to war for the American people against the British. And what he really wanted was, when we win this war, what do we have to show for ourselves? We will have the flag that we can be proud of, and it will represent our freedom. We are going to be completing the historical fiction graphic organizer. We'll be using the story, Can You Sew a Flag, Betsy Ross, that we just read.